The Aussie property market soared 60% in a decade, and the future looks bright. Hi, and welcome to Property NXT Talks, where we, your hosts Cilla and Luke, share banter on life and Aussie real estate investing specifically for expats. As Aussie expats in Singapore, passionate about property and experienced in investing from overseas, we'll share our insights on growing Australian markets, residential and commercial property investment strategies, lending options, and more. Ready to talk property the Aussie way? Let's go. Welcome to Property NXT Talks. I'm Cilla.
Hey Cilla, I'm Luke. Good to be here.
Yeah, welcome back. This is our eighth episode now.
And yes.
We have our special guest, Tristan.
Thank you.
Good friend and our go-to expert on tax.
Thank you.
And we're really going to talk today. We want to talk about investment properties and tax strategies. But before we do, we want to talk about what's happening on in our personal lives, so we don't get too straight into the straight talk.
What's happening, Cilla? What have you been up to?
My mum's in town. She comes up every July, August for a month and has been for the last few years.
Is Jamie okay? Is he surviving?
You might need to ask him. He's very good and very patient with the mother-in-law.
Everyone loves the mother-in-law visiting, don't they, Tristan?
But Jamie's like the miracle son-in-law. He can do no wrong, really. He's
horrendous.
I know.
I don't like hearing
so
that.
He probably loves it.
He's got that smile that,
yes.
that all is forgotten.
Yeah. So it's good. It's good for the kids to spend some time with her. We walked around McRitchie actually the other day, which I haven't done.
Yeah, what time did you do it?
We started at 7.
Okay, nice. That's
it was a good time.
Good time.
So my mum's 65 and she's going to Borneo next week to do a trek, and so she wants to start training and doing big walks. So it took us a bit longer than we thought, but we ended up walking 15 kilometres, and my mum's had 2 knee replacements.
Wow.
She's got peripheral neuropathy in her feet. She's got osteoarthritis in her feet.
This isn't a doctor's
it was
show,
just
Cilla.
like
That's a lot.
It was a lot, and then I totally underestimated how long the walk was going to take. But she's thankfully okay. The McRitchie walk is beautiful. We saw a lot of amazing nature on the walk. But yeah, that was a bit of it started off super strong and then it finished a little bit
It's nothing like Singapore
nerve-wracking, but she was strong. She was
to bring people down to earth.
Wow. Yeah, that's,
I always say 8 to 10 Ks in Sydney or Australia is worth probably 20 Ks up here.
Agree.
It's just brutal, the heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about you, Luke? What's been happening?
I've had guests in town. One of my best mates was
More
here.
guests?
Yeah, he's a farmer from down in Wagga, so very different. And I got to be tour guide. So it's awesome to spend a few days just cruising around Singapore and showing him what we love about the place and doing all those fun things.
Yeah,
and
I like hosting.
Yeah, being a
It's
host.
nice to show your home around.
Yeah.
What's on your list? So if someone says I'm in town for a couple of days, I've never seen Singapore, apart from the usual Gardens by the Bay, Marina Bay that you take them to, where would you take them for food, and where would you take them to show them a side of Singapore?
So the new one we do for entertainment is, and I told this to a few people and they didn't know about it. You know the boats on the river at Clark Quay?
Yep.
And you can get them, they cruise into the Merlion around MBS,
Yes.
etc.
Yeah.
There's a nighttime one that does the light show. So it's specifically, you get on at 7:30, it times it so it gets around past Merlion, they stop out the front of MBS for the water and light show, and you sit there specifically for that. So it's like you're in
That's really
Vegas.
nice.
You get to, you're right up, you actually feel the water.
That's a good one.
And that's a really good one. And I don't think you'd known about that, did you?
It's on my list now.
Yeah.
I'll take Mum on.
It's really, really good. So we did a little dinner. We were in Robertson Quays. We did a little dinner beforehand. The other one we we did Level 33, the
brewery sky.
Yeah, and that was pretty amazing for the adults only. We left the kids all at home watching movies.
Yep.
That's a cracker. And you, what's been happening?
Me,
Thank you for coming, by the way.
No, thank you for having me. Pleasure to take some time out of my day.
One of the most
hang out with you
exciting
guys.
topics in the world, tax.
Taxes
How to minimise
great.
it.
Very
love
top
to talk
of
about
mind.
it.
Love to talk
about it. So yeah, happy to talk about it. But yeah, on the personal front this week, I sent my 11-year-old back to Australia as an unaccompanied minor. So I felt like it was a pivotal point in time. And as all things Singapore was like super efficient. We sort of checked her in, handed over the form. Someone came and collected her, took her straight to the gates. In no time she was on the flight, and in no time she was picked up in Melbourne.
She got like gold access into the lounge and in there drinking a little glass of wine or a champagne. Mum and Dad aren't here.
It was funny. I did see in the terms and conditions that even if you buy them a business class flight, which we would never do that, just putting it out there. As a tax accountant, that does not make sense for me. They're not allowed lounge access. I read it in the T's and C's.
Really?
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So anyway, news for everyone out there.
How was the goodbye and the send off?
She got to ride in one of those little buggies that go around Changi.
So she was fine.
She was fine. Yeah.
Mum and Dad maybe not.
Yeah,
so
we
much.
were
Dad
just
distraught,
just freaking
through
out
the window.
Yeah.
She's not looking back. She's not looking back.
Yeah, we had to sort of wait at the airport until the flight took off. So we were just pressed up against the glass, but we couldn't see her. So I don't know what we were looking up for, but it all went fine. So yeah, that was big on the family front.
That's very exciting.
I'm excited. One of my I love this topic.
So
tax.
Yes. And at Property Next, when we are talking about investing back in Australia, the tax questions do come up from our clients, whether it's land tax, capital gains tax, how do we buy, all of those structural questions come up. And we believe partnering with experts in these areas allows us to help our clients feel more empowered when making decisions to purchase, because we're giving them the whole picture and they're able to consider all the factors that it takes when investing in a property. So we've got Tristan, who is our sort of resident Australian tax accountant. Tristan, just give us a bit of an intro on yourself. What do people come to you for?
Thank you. So look, my elevator pitch that I tell people when I meet them is I'm an Australian tax accountant based in Singapore. And I've been in Singapore nearly 10 years now. I've been a tax accountant for over 20, and I specialise in expats by virtue of being up here. So I spend most of my days helping people navigate the cross-border tax rules. I prepare tax returns, which is a necessary evil of being a tax accountant, but we also do a lot of advice for expatriation, repatriation, residency, and of course property, which is the kind of the number one asset class that I feel that Aussies love to talk about, love to purchase, love to strategize on selling it, when, and sort of think about getting those bricks and mortar and how it's going to make them some money in the future, and or if they're going to live in it, the future family home strategy. So there's probably every day of the week I'm talking to people about property, whether it's buying another one, refinancing, etc. So yeah, it's a big part of my life.
And do you think it is a great strategy for us Aussies to buy more property?
Look, the on balance. So there's going to be a sort of balanced answer. So I think everyone needs property in their investment mix. So and it's you've got the practical property, which is a future family home. I think we might talk about that a little bit later on.
Yep.
And then you've got the functional investment. Sorry, the investment style, which is the investment property, which can look a lot different to a future family home, had different tax profile. So yeah, long story short is yes, everyone should have property. Can't give investment advice, blah blah blah. But but as a tax guy, looking on balance, yes.
And I think what we find, a lot of people, one of the reasons they're hesitant to continue building portfolios of property investments is the tax problem. But as Luke says, if you've got a tax problem, what is it you say? What's your saying?
My favourite saying is, if you've got a tax problem, you need a good accountant, i.e. that's why you're here. If you don't have a tax problem, you've got other problems.
Yep.
So you need to get a tax problem. It means you're doing okay, doesn't it?
It does.
It means something's going right.
I think I'd love to be able to roll you out, Luke, when I'm having these difficult conversations with clients when they've got a tax bill.
I mean, we all got to pay it, right? So we've all got to pay tax. We know, governments spend how many millions of dollars just employing people to try and track down tax, create taxes.
Yep.
It's just insane. So you have to pay it.
Yep.
But how do you minimise it is, I guess, the question that we want to do. But I think there's an element of minimisation at the start too, isn't there? Like, if you think about what you're buying, how you're buying, and I guess there's just that journey that we want to take our clients on as Aussie expats, is do things the smart way, the right way. And, we're big believers in probably a upfront conversation.
Yeah.
Before the 12-month hits and then you get the bill.
Agree. Yeah, that the upfront conversations, they're not always easy for, in reality for people to have, because they might be emotionally attached to something, or there might be other things going on and they just want to seal the deal, so to speak. And they're probably the toughest situations I have to navigate is when someone has acted emotionally or what they might think is commercially, just, quickly seal the deal because the price is good. And then later on, 12 months later, I was like, oh, why'd you do that? And then we have to, obviously do our best to give them the best advice we can under the circumstances. But yeah, if you take advice up front, or even just have a quick chat to a tax accountant like myself.
There's benefit in the long run, isn't there?
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And
even if it's like, okay, no benefit, but good to have the chat. You now know where you're going. Actually,
Exactly.
It's been given the tick of approval.
Yeah. If someone just says, look, there's no fault in your strategy, everything's sounding good, makes sense. It's time well spent, even if it's only 5 or 10 minute chat.
Yeah.
Because I think the reality is we all think we know enough about tax to make these decisions, but especially living overseas as an expat and not a resident of Australia, it is complicated, but there are so many different channels you can take that not everyone is privy to. So that's another reason why we want to
change them
partner
all
with
the time,
these
don't
experts.
They do, yeah.
And state by state's different. So
you both know that I shot you an article last night as I was about to pass out. I was like, potential changes to capital gains tax. There's always something, and this is speculation. We'll sort of see how far it goes, but this is, there's always something moving and grooving. This one in particular was increasing the capital gains tax discount for new builds, which is an interesting one, and decreasing it for existing properties. So the proposal was normally get a 50% capital gains tax discount for properties that are held for more than 12 months by residents.
If you're in Australia,
by resident for tax purposes. And they're basically saying for new builds, they look to propose to increase it to 70% discount rather than 50% discount when you sell it. And existing builds would drop from 50 to 30. So,
why would they do that though? I mean, I see a benefit, but I also see a negative. What are they tweaking? There's obviously a numbers in the background, isn't there? But it's just
who
crazy.
knows what's going on in
look, there's always a lot of discussion about changing tax, and a lot of clients bring to my attention. Some talk to me as if it's already happened. They're like, oh my God, the residency rules have changed. It's like they've not changed. We've just been talking about changing them for a number of years now, but nothing's changed yet.
Yeah.
So,
What are the
I think
questions we want to get answered?
One of the things we wanted to throw out was like maybe some scenarios. So say you're an Australian expat with a principal place of residence and you've got X% equity in your place, and this is a scenario that we come across, and you probably do too. And you're like, what do I do with that? Do I sell the property, but then I have to pay capital gains tax? What can I do with my equity? What's the best structure? How do I move forward from here?
And also, our general rule as a business at Property Next is to, we're all about acquiring and holding assets, particularly as Aussie expats, because of the tax implications being, that you'll explain later, that you get paid the full hit of capital gains tax.
It can be quite nasty.
So our strategy for all our clients is, if you are going to buy, generally our say-so is to say, yes, you should buy but hold. But if you have to sell. You just got to accept the tax hits that come with it.
Yep.
And there's things to consider, if I am buying that second property, whose name do I buy it under? How do I set that up? And to, again, optimise that tax approach too.
So if we start with the top line issue is your principal place of residence, so your family home. So assuming you're an expat.
So set the scene. You own your house, you live in your house.
Yep. Probably some mortgage on it.
Probably some more. You get sent overseas.
Yep.
The family's moving. You're packing up. You're off.
Pack out your place and you rent it out.
Yep.
So over here, and you think, okay, what do I do with my house? So firstly, is normally the advice is don't sell it when you're offshore, because as you mentioned, you get you completely miss out on the principal place of residence exemption on the sale of that property. So normally a family home is capital gains tax exempt, which is a big number of tax to save, and planting a heap of your wealth into a capital gains tax exempt property. So with this one, the rules changed a few years ago. So the main thing is don't plan to sell your principal place of residence whilst you're offshore. There is that awkward, horrible situation where you get divorced, and the tax office do provide a 6-year exemption for that. But really importantly, you have to take advice if that is happening, because the order of events is really important. So you need to get the divorce order. The divorce order needs to say the house will be sold, and then you sell the house, and it's got to be within 6 years of being offshore. So there's a few things like that. But anyway, back onto the straight and narrow. So you're over here, you got your house. What should I do? So assuming that you've expressed an interest in buying another property. So Firstly, people would, might look and say, hey, I want another house in New South Wales because that's where I know, and I can get my mum or my dad to drive over and take a look at it, or my friends, or, to consider it. So if you're getting an investment property in the same state as your family home, you need to think about land tax. That's really important because land tax can be quite hefty. It's exempt on your family home when you're living in it, but when you're renting it out, it's subject to land tax. Land tax is tax deductible, but it can really add up for some of those big family homes. At the moment, I know in Victoria, myself and Julia, we're paying about $50,000 a year of land tax, and it's a big number. When we, eventually when we go back and move back into our house, won't have to do that anymore. But it's material enough.
$50,000 a year.
Yeah,
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and it's a family house. It's got a holding of land on it, so we're obviously paying based on the land value. But when we move into it, that falls away. So it's one of those things. So New South Wales have similar rules as does Queensland.
The thresholds are different though in each state, aren't they?
They are. Yeah, they are. So land tax needs to be considered. So I used to have a pilot client that used to say to me, you need to look at Australia at 40,000 feet or whatever. I think planes fly at 40,000 feet, don't they?
Don't know.
Whatever.
Let's say yes, 40,000 feet.
I'll ask my daughter. She'd know, yeah. But he'd say you need to look at Australia from 40,000 feet up, and not just by in the state that you're
familiar with.
So that and that's probably more a question I'd hand over to the both of you to advise a client.
Spread's really important because it's understanding where that land tax threshold kicks in.
Yeah.
And also the asset class you've got, as you would know. You buy a house, you're instantly up for, there's a land value on that. But if you buy an apartment in a block of 10 to 200, then there's a divided multiple of that. So if you're one of 100 or one of 50 or one of 10, then that division then helps with your land tax component.
Yeah.
So that the diversification play is really important with people with multiple properties. But if you've just got one and you're looking for your second, outside of Victoria, you're normally pretty safe unless it's a really big property, perhaps in New South Wales, aren't you?
Yeah. So the exactly. So New South Wales is $1,075,000, I think is the current threshold for land tax.
And that's land value, not asset value.
Correct.
Yeah,
exactly. And Queensland's like 600, I think 600 or thereabouts. So that's a consideration when you're looking at the property. Then you've got, whose name should I put it in? Because that's always, you've got husband and wife. Generally, the family.
You also
home.
might have mixed. So you might have Australian and American, Australian, German.
Really good. Yeah, that's a big call out.
Backgrounds too.
Different backgrounds as well. So if the, generally the first place that might put a roadblock into that is the bank. So the bank might say, okay, you're not an Australian citizen or you're not an Australian PR, therefore the debt's can be harder to acquire. But more importantly, from an Australian standpoint, buying a property as a foreigner, you've got foreigner land tax and foreigner stamp duty and even FIRB, Foreign Investment Review Board, permissions and the like. So there's all sorts of, it's a bit of a minefield.
Hidden fees. Hidden costs.
That's it. So generally you'd say, okay, if we're saying it's an Aussie couple, mum and dad are both Aussie citizens, then you basically say, okay, whose name should we put the property in? It's then thinking about, the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of holding this property. Once you return from expat land and return back to Australia,
I like
you can call it that. And it's definitely very much an expat land, this little bubble that we live in. Those losses will be pegged to that person's name. Can they use them efficiently in Australia? So, you might say, let's say at the higher income earner, you might want to consider putting more of the percentage of the property ownership in their name because those losses are going to flow to them. And in the future, when they're back in Australia, assuming working, they're not, retiring, then those losses will be more useful at a higher marginal rate.
And I suppose someone would come to you for advice or talking about that percentage, because it's not just an arbitrary percentage like, hey, 70-30, let's just do it. I'm sure there's some calculations and analysis that needs to go into how we're going to do that.
How are we going to do it? Yeah. So normally it might be, the way I look at it is it might just be 100% in someone else's name.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to just say, hey, this, out of the two taxpayers, one of them might want to take a bit of a career break, or they might want to do consulting for themselves. Or,
well, they might not be working anyway,
well.
so there is exactly. Nothing to...
Yeah, there's that point. And there's also the flip side of that to think about, saying if we're going to buy a property with a view that we want to pay off the loan quickly, which is another discussion probably for later today, then they're going to have positive rental income coming their way, and as a result, they're having income flow to them. When they're not working in Australia, they'll be paying less tax than, say, the other side of the couple that might be on a high marginal tax rate because they're working for selling.
And then so say we'll go back to the house. So they've got, let's put some numbers to it. So it's a $1.5 million valued asset that they've left behind. They've moved overseas to expat land. They've got a loan on it left of, say, $500,000. They've got $1 million of equity in it. Mm-hmm. And so we know the banks will lend out upwards of up to 80% of the value. So then, but they've maybe got some shares, maybe got some other things. But then we're thinking, okay, they might be interested in buying a second property. How does that look from getting some of that money out from a tax point of view out of the main residence into then buying a investment property from a tax sort of
tax
maximising an efficiency point of view?
Yeah, so the taxman, the way they look at tax deductible debt is they follow the cash. So if the cash comes out of property 1, goes over to property 2, they'll say even though that basically cash is secured against property 1, the debt relates to property 2 because that's where the money went. So that's really important to sort of remember those concepts. Eventually when you return to Australia, you've got your main residence, which might have lower debt on it, but you've then got property 2, which is your investment property, which has got debt secured against it. If you said, hey, I want to pay off all my debt, then it doesn't matter. But if you want to pay off just your main residence debt, which is normally what I encourage clients to consider, you do that just before you move back into your main residence, because that debt becomes non-tax deductible from that point onwards, which means it's really expensive. It's kind of like you've got to earn money in Australia, you've got to pay the tax, then you've got to pay the mortgage, as opposed to the other way around where you pay the interest but it gives you tax deduction, so it reduces your tax. So it's always pay off that loan first and retain your investment property loans because they're actually the ones giving you some leverage. But long story short is, yes, you can pull money out of property 1 or your main residence in order to buy property 2, but you just need to remember that property 2 is probably secured against property 1. So if you in the future you are looking at even selling your main residence, you need to refinance so you don't have a drama when you're trying to, sell that property, pay off debt, refinance, and that sort of thing. So keep your loans clean, basically.
Yes, yeah. That's exciting. There's so many questions you can ask, isn't there?
Yeah. There's also the questions of depreciation and appreciation, and how do you look at that? So say you've managed that, you've secured your second property, and you're sort of setting up the right structures for that.
Yeah. What do you do? So let's say you bought it. Let's say it's a brand new property. It's an easy example. So brand new properties have great depreciation allowances. So you can claim depreciation on both the building, construction works, and all the assets inside. So carpets, curtains, air conditioner, hot water service, etc., etc. So you need to get a depreciation report for that. That's a one-off.
Who provides that?
There's lots of providers, and most small towns have got their own local players as well. So look, it's a depreciation is one of those things, without getting too tax technical on this call and putting everyone to sleep. Depreciation is a temporary timing difference. So it's important to remember that. So if you claim it today...
Temporary timing difference.
For tax purposes. So that means if you claim it today on your tax return, when you sell your investment property, it needs to be added back to your capital gains tax calculation. So if I claim $100 today as a tax deduction, eventually when I sell the property and I make a $200 gain, I need to add that extra $100 back. So suddenly I'm making a $300 gain. But people say, why would you do it? There's many reasons to do it. So one is you want to, defer any kind of tax liability today, push it to the very last moment you can, which is at the end. Secondly, when you sell the property, it gets discounted generally based on time in Australia. So you'll get a partial 50% capital gains tax discount. And thirdly, if it's your main residence that you're renting out and you're getting a depreciation report for that, it's a permanent deduction in the sense that, if you're going to sell the property, capital gains tax free in the future, assuming you've returned to it, re-established it within 6 years, etc., or you've got some kind of principal place of residence exemption on it, when you sell it, there's going to, it'll make sense. So long story short is, without putting everyone to sleep, and you guys are both you're both glazing up at me here. I was like, oh no.
I love the enthusiasm.
I still recommend getting a depreciation report.
Yeah.
And
then talk to your tax accountant and consultant to understand what the next steps are, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. There's that, and then there's other things like buying a second-hand property. So it's saying, we're going to get an apartment or a house that's a few years old, and rent it out. Be careful of those initial repairs. That's another one to be careful of. So you get the house and you're like, oh, I might just give it a quick lick of paint before the tenants move in. That's not tax deductible. So anything you do to the property,
improve it or upgrade it,
to get it ready for rented, actually.
Yeah,
so
okay.
get it ready for rent, and then once the tenants are in there renting it for a while, then you do things like fix the air conditioner and fix the sink and all that sort of stuff. So
get them in there with a broken air conditioner and put it in a week later.
Yeah, put it in a week later.
And they say, why'd you do that? Well, our accountant told us to.
And so we can claim the tax deduction on it. It was something that happened. Look, but it's be careful of those initial costs to get the property ready for rent, because most of them will be capital, which you can only claim, at the end when it's ready to sell.
Can we pivot slightly?
Sure.
I want to know about self-managed super funds.
Yeah.
So big in Australia.
Yep.
Especially regarding property.
Regarding property. We can't do it up here.
No.
Is there some other way around it? You could call it that, but not call it that.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any sort of wiggle room? Any angles?
I think the long story short is probably not.
Yep.
So if you've got a self-managed super fund and you're moving offshore, you need to put on ice. Basically, put on ice or shut it down. And by putting on ice, you normally need to appoint a different director. You need to stop contributing to it and just let the investments just bubble away whilst you're up here. There's some. I'm not a SMSF expert because it's quite a Aussie centric thing, but in Australia, SMS are great. You can definitely make contributions to your super whilst you're offshore. You can do things like help if you've got a investment property that's producing positive rent. We get no tax-free threshold up here. So, your positive rent, you earn $10,000 worth of net rent after costs. You got to pay 30% on that. So you'd lose $3,000, or if not, you could make a $10,000 super contribution, and then you pay no tax up here, and you get to put an extra $10K in super.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so
that's
positive. Okay, but you'd have to have it pre-set up in Australia to do so.
Sorry. This would be if you didn't have a self-managed super fund, you had a positively geared rental property. So you can put money in super to build up your super, and this will be a reason to do that.
Okay.
Because putting money in super does lock it up. It locks it up until you're 60 and retired or 65. And there is a 15% charge there. But there's nothing stopping you from building up your super here, and then 5 minutes after you arrive in Australia, set up a self-managed super fund. And then you can roll your industry super fund monies into the self-managed super fund, and then you can buy property in that.
There you go. That's interesting. And I think there's all those angles that we want to know that we can talk to clients about. The thing is, right, we're not experts, are we?
No.
We've got a grade 3 level tax understanding.
I'm probably
maybe.
more a grade 2.
Apprentice 1, apprentice 2. But our whole philosophy is, this is why we partner with you, right, is we've all got our skill sets.
Exactly. And if I ever try and give you or anyone property advice, don't listen to me. It's not my forte.
I mean, we spend our days looking at locations, looking at what's going on with markets, looking at charts, etc., which is what we do for a living. And we talk about this a lot with our clients is, you're up here, you're busy, you're flat out working, family life, socialising, etc., travelling. This is, you use us, use our skill set, and we're the same with you. We use your skill set for your. And I'm just a big believer in we're up here as a big community, aren't we? Everyone knows each other.
Yeah.
And, that's what we're here for, to help our people.
Exactly. Yeah. So the self-managed, like I have seen clients who've come up here and they've had sort of a non-working spouse who's continued to be an Australian tax resident for the purposes of keeping the self-managed super fund alive.
Really? Okay.
Which is a little bit, it's not a kosher strategy in my opinion, because it's, residency is not one of those things that you can decide whether you're a resident or not. It's based on the facts and circumstances. So it's one of those, if you're living up here but pretending to be an Australian tax resident for the purposes of that, it's thin ice.
So you're hoping no one's looking under the bonnet.
Yeah,
a bit more detail.
No one's digging any deeper.
Yeah,
exactly.
okay. Yeah, we're not into risk. That's not our philosophy, is it? It's sort of like, let's do things by the book, and you can make a lot of money doing things by the book anyway.
You can.
Yeah, that's the exciting part.
Yeah. And do you get asked a lot about debt recycling and how you would manage that from a tax perspective?
I do, yeah. So
and could you just explain what debt recycling is?
Debt recycling, yeah.
To you?
So debt recycling, it's sort of a concept that's used when you've got a non-deductible debt and you've got something that's deductible. So a typical situation would be you move back to Australia, you've still got your family home loan that you haven't managed to pay off just because it's big and that sort of thing. So let's say that you've got a share portfolio. that you're building up in Australia. So, so basically, what you do is you normally when you have money, you've got some spare money, you take it and you pay off your home loan, right? So pay it off, or you might even have an objective where you want to take that spare money and build up a share portfolio, even though you've got this non-tax deductible debt. So the idea of debt recycling is basically saying I've got debt on my home loan. I want to convert that debt on my home loan and bring it over to the tax deductible debt bucket, which is associated with my shares, which is producing income.
Could also be investment property.
It could be investment property. I was trying to think a smaller bite-sized chunk type thing that you could do it.
We're into $1 million here in this business. Yeah. Let's just put 7 figures on everything. Eh?
But you could do it in chunks with investment property. So you could go basically say, I've got a bonus of $10,000 and I want to buy $10,000 worth of shares, but I've got this big dirty home loan I've got, which is non-tax deductible, which is expensive. So the process of the debt recycling is take your $10,000, pay down your family home loan, so it goes down, and it's a physical repayment, not an actual stick it in the offset account style repayments. Then you need a separate facility with the bank that you can then draw $10,000 out of, and then that $10,000 gets used to purchase shares, which would be tax deductible. So in a larger scale, you basically if you had 100,000, actually this is a good property example. Actually, this is how it could work. So you've got a $100,000 bonus. I want to use that for a deposit for a property. That's a good one.
Yeah.
How can I make this work? Take your 100,000, pay off your home loan, or put that on your home loan so it pays it down 100,000. Yeah. Then draw out a brand new line of credit out of that home loan because the bank suddenly said, "Oh, you paid off 100,000. We'll give you another 100,000." Then you pull
Love how
that
banks
out.
work. Thanks for your money. Here, do you want it back?
Yeah, do you want it back? Exactly, yeah. So then you pull out like a fresh drawing. So you need to actually, best practice is to segregate that brand new loan. So if the taxman ever comes knocking on your door and has a look at things, you can clearly say that loan was only used for that investment property. Mm-hmm. Then you draw that out of a brand new loan and you can take it over and use it for a deposit for your investment property. And then, once the property settles, then you can take out a separate loan and you have these kind of...
And as we know, Cilla, there's a 20% advantage with that loan going in.
Yeah.
So you make your $100,000 in Singapore bonus, put it into your Australian mortgage at $120,000, $119.5 at the moment.
Yeah, the FX.
Draw out $119.
Yeah.
You got yourself a 10% deposit for a $1.19 million property there.
Yep.
And a year later, when you get your next bonus, that's your 20%.
Yep.
But I think these kind
Bob's your uncle,
these
you're
kind
off.
of approaches are so. This is why you have an expert, because you can get the first 3 steps, but there's so much other moving pieces that you need to think about when it comes to this. But it's just smarter ways of how you could be more tax effective.
Our message is always, it's conversations, isn't it? Like let's just open it up for a chat. What's your situation? And I think a lot of Aussies out there will be like, I just didn't know any of this. Like, I'm just sitting on one asset. I'm having a good life, but I just don't think I can do anything.
Yeah.
And I think all it takes is a 20, 30-minute conversation with someone, and it might just open up that thought. We're not saying you have to buy tomorrow, but it might say over the next 6 months, we've got a lot of clients we talk to at 6 months along the line, and they're buying because they just build that confidence and they build that level of education. So actually, these guys know what they're talking about. You know what you're talking about. And we partner with great mortgage brokers. We can kind of help them get to that point.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that happens is you have a couple of coffees and you get a bit more knowledge, don't you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Terrible thing to happen.
Yeah,
terrible thing.
Understand
drink
things
more coffee
more.
and understand things more. Exactly.
Yeah.
Another question that or not even a question, like the scenarios that we come across, we might speak to someone who thinks they're interested in buying an investment property, but then they've decided, no, you know what, we're just going to focus on paying our mortgage down for our existing property.
Yep.
From a tax perspective, is there any pros and cons to paying a mortgage off or just continuing to build that portfolio?
That's okay. That's a really good question. That's the sort of the conservative versus the the super conservative strategy versus not less conservative is probably the wrong word, but just getting your
Just
money
your
worth
tolerance for risk.
Risky.
Yeah,
Exactly. So paying off your mortgage. Okay, I'm as I said before, I'm a big fan of being debt-free on your family home when you're living in it. But whilst the actual family home is basically generating some income for you, having some tax-deductible debt's not a bad thing because it gives you leverage. and it gives you the ability to increase your property portfolio, get more assets in the market for you, growing when the market lifts, producing some more tax deductible losses for you, which will kind of roll up. Now, losses roll forward forever, so that's the important thing to note. So a lot of people worry that they're going to evaporate, but no, they roll forward forever.
Losses in a second, I think, next, because
that's
that terminology sometimes might need clarification.
Yeah,
but sorry, continue.
That's good. So then you've, basically having a plan. You say, hey, we're going to be in Singapore for maybe 5 years, maybe 10, not too sure, but a bit of a plan, or maybe anywhere else in the world, to be honest. Yeah. Have a plan to build up your assets, and then just before you're going to go back to Australia, plan to sell something, liquidate it, and then dump that on the mortgage. So there's the short-term building strategy, which is basically investing in shares and stocks and bonds when you're up here, which are capital gains tax-free. And the longer-term chunks is once you get enough of those, you sell them and use it for a property deposit to build up your build up the property portfolio. Mm-hmm. So that's using leverage. It's using a bit of arbitrage as well, differences between the two different tax jurisdictions. And normally when I model it, so we do I do have clients that say, hey, show me how the numbers work. No, don't just tell me. So we model it. You normally quite a bit further ahead when you can kind of flex yourself a little bit whilst you're up here, whilst you've got the good cash flow and that sort of thing, just to increase your asset base and just work a little bit harder. Do it now, which will improve your life later on in the future, kind of thing.
Mm.
Yeah. So while overseas, just keep your regular mortgage repayments for that property back home. Explore other assets while you're up here, so that you can get so you get further ahead.
Exactly, and have a plan to for when you may return. And there's also some expats that say to me, I don't even know if I'm going to return, or I may not go back to Australia. And it's still not a bad thing if you're executing that kind of plan, because you'll be building up losses in Australia that can use against capital gains in the future, and the assets are working hard for you, right?
Talk about losses. So yes. You just said it again.
Yeah.
What are losses?
What are they? What are losses? Okay, so losses go by the name of either tax losses or tax credits is another name that's bouncing around as well. So these, it's effectively the negative gearing benefit, the difference between the top line property income and the bottom line expenses, interest on your mortgage and depreciation. If that produces a negative number, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but for tax purposes, that's a tax loss. That will continue to roll forward in your name until it's used. Losses are lazy, so they're used on a first come best dress kind of basis, which means that what are the things you can use up losses? Okay, one is returning to Australia and earning Australian taxable income. So if you're building up $20,000 of tax losses a year, you return to Australia, suddenly you've got 5 years later, you've got $100,000 worth of tax losses. It means that the first $100,000 worth of income that you earn in Australia is going to be tax-free. And you can even go one step further and, with your new employer, you can apply to the ATO to adjust your pay-as-you-go withholding for that period, so you get more money take home.
So instead of having the end-of-year
refund, instead of the big refund at the end of the year, you can do it straight away. So that's an option. Other things is, okay, you build up losses up here, you can use them against capital gains. So if you've got a property you want to sell, it's made a good gain, those losses will come home to roost and be used against, that property gain or just any other Australian sourced income.
But you have to be back in Australia, resident there to activate the loss, like to sort of reclaim
Not
those
necessarily.
losses? No? You can still be overseas.
Still be overseas. So you can so in the event you sell a property when you're overseas, that'll, basically those losses will be offset against that. There's, but yeah, from a property point of view, they'll just keep they roll forward in your name forever. And then when you either have that capital gains tax event or you return to Australia and start earning taxable income, you can benefit from it.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. Yeah. So you're up here, you buy an investment property.
Yep.
Have it for 5 years, you bank the losses, and you're still up here, but you have to sell. Something's happened.
Yep.
You can sell that asset. Let's just say you've made 300 grand in capital gain.
Yep.
Normally 150 of it goes straight to the government.
Yep.
Because it's full 50% whack from being overseas.
Yep.
But if you've got 5 years of losses, that can offset that 150 grand to a degree.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can do it from up here.
Absolutely.
So there's big benefits in the new build process for that too, because of all the extra depreciation you get with new versus old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the depreciation allowances are massive, and the losses will you can get losses from one property can offset positively geared properties on the other properties.
So on average, what's $1 million asset, new build?
Yep.
Let's just say hypothetically a townhouse, new build, settles. What's that first year's depreciation? Because it's a schedule, isn't it? So it's not rocket science what they're doing. There's a number that's attached to every item.
It's like a formula.
It's a formula, yeah. So we sort of break it down. So you've got two different types of depreciation. So you've got the construction cost of the property, which is 2.5% over 40 years. So effectively, you get $2,500 for every $100,000 of a build cost.
Okay, so it's a $500,000 build.
Yeah,
it's 10 grand's worth of losses.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Per annum.
Per annum.
That doesn't change.
That's for 40 years. So that just kind of keeps happening. So then you've got, all the other stuff. So carpets, curtains, air conditioner, hot water service, etc., etc. So that stuff that's a diminishing value method. So that declines each year. So in the first year you might get 20K. Second year you might get 18K. Third year you might get 15. Yeah, slides down. So
like a new car.
Exactly, like a new car. Exactly.
You could have $30,000 to $35,000 of depreciation losses banked year one.
Correct, exactly.
Year two, very similar number. Year three. So if you did have to sell, that can really be quite a benefit.
Yeah. And
I've learnt that today. It's a new one for me. I didn't know you could sell and claim them while still being overseas.
Yeah, and look, the even better thing is that let's say you buy a new build, but in your portfolio you've also got an old property that you want to sell. The losses from the new build can help offset the gains on the old property. So the losses
you can sort of transfer them around.
Oh, they just pool in your name.
Okay.
So, and whenever you have that event, it just follows you. So that's a good strategy.
Well, I'm conscious of our time because this has been a really good podcast so far.
There was just one more question we might be able to answer.
Yep.
It's going back. We sort of talked about buying it in the name 100% or not.
Yep.
There's also talk about buying it in a trust, right?
Yeah,
that's another consideration set for people buying property.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good one. So firstly...
Trust or company.
Trust or company or name, right? There's different sort of approaches here.
Yeah. So firstly, the conversation always starts with what's the purpose of the property? And someone says it's a potential future family home, then we can only do it in your own personal name generally, because in order to benefit from that future principal place of residence exemption for capital gains tax and also the principal place of residence exemption for land tax, it's got to be in your personal name. Some states have got some flexibility around the land tax, but the PPR exemption for CGT purposes, that's the big one. So if it's a future family home, generally we just put in your own name unless there's an extreme reason why we don't want to do that. So that's step one. Then if we say it's just an investment property, then we say, okay, you're buying it with finance, and normally people say, yes, I am. I want the losses. Losses get trapped in entities. So whether you buy it in a company or a trust, those losses will get trapped within that entity. So if you want those losses to be used in the future against future salary and wages and other things in your own name, that'll also make the conversation a lot easier and go, well, it's got to be in your own name if you want the losses to pass through. If the conversation then goes further and the person says, no, I want to buy it in cash and I want it for my kids in the future, at the moment I'll just rent it out for a period of time, then you might say a trust might be better, because basically you buy it in the trust. A trust generally doesn't pay tax. So all it does is push the income, between certain beneficiaries. So you've got mum, dad, kids, grandparents, and kids, I think, which is a little bit scary to think about that. But anyway, so the family trust will push the income around in an efficient manner. Caveat to that is finance on a trust is harder when you're offshore.
And can you set up a trust from overseas?
You can, but another caveat to that is taxable distributions from trusts are painful for tax purposes. So in the sense that I've got clients that bought a house for cash because they just couldn't get a loan for one reason or another, distributing positive income. Their tax return process is painful because what we have to do is we need to lodge the trust tax return. The trust then pays tax on behalf of the beneficiaries, which is them. And then once that's lodged and paid, which is a slow process, then you need to actually lodge the individuals and claim back the tax that was paid in the trust level. So it's a bit of a compliance nightmare for expats. Because
there's a bit of a thing online. Everyone says you should buy something in a trust or buy something in a company versus your own name. And I think the idea is before you go down that path is to talk to someone like you.
It's got to seek advice, because it gets tricky. And the other thing is there is provisions with distributing to non-residents as well from trusts and land tax, so that needs to be considered as well. So there's a few kind of things that's worth taking advice if you're looking at buying in a trust.
I think that's the big takeaway, isn't it?
I think, and just takeaway from this whole conversation is seek advice. Like the chat, Tristan offers a free initial discovery call where he's, just having the chat to understand where you're at and see how he can help you. And
do you have clients everywhere, or is it just Singapore?
They dotted, like there's a large group of them in Singapore, but I do have clients dotted all around the world at the moment. So I've got like one on a boat. And it's like, where are you today? And they're like, oh, I'm in,
fascinating.
Argentina. It's somewhere interesting, and I was like, oh, cool. But but I do have clients dotted all around the world. So,
I think that's the thing. Australian expats are everywhere, aren't they?
They are. Yeah.
And everyone loves still Australian property.
Yep.
Because they see it as a really safe asset class. But also you can get leverage on the asset too.
Yep.
Like the banks see it as a really safe asset class, so they're going to give you 80% of their money to invest in it for you. And then if you get that, then how do you best maximise or minimise your tax? And that's the exciting part. So we're really excited to partner with you and help all our clients with the right advice.
I think it works out in the partnership where we can help. We help the clients know where to buy and what to buy, and how to buy is kind of the best way we could put it forward.
I'm loving working with you guys.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for coming on and sharing all of the knowledge. If you want to know more, you can reach out to us at propertynextaustralia.com and just hit us up. If you could share this with one person, that you'd be doing us a huge favour. We love having our guests on the show talking about how to maximise tax today. If you want, we'll have lots of different shorts. So check out our YouTube shorts as well if you need some more bite-sized information.
Yeah, can pass that on to the world now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks.
Thanks for coming. See ya.
Thank you.